What if Joe Montana never left the San Francisco 49ers? It's a question that reshapes not just one franchise, but the entire history of the NFL. Joe Cool, the man who defined poise under pressure, the heartbeat of Bill Walsh's West Coast offense, the quarterback who turned comebacks into an art form. By the early 1990s, his legend was already cemented. 4 Super Bowl titles, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, and an aura of calm that made chaos look effortless. But then came the twist. A brutal elbow injury in 1990, the rise of a younger, hungry Steve Young. And by 1993, Montana was wearing Kansas City red instead of 49ers scarlet and gold. The dynasty shifted, and an era ended. But what if that chapter was rewritten? What if Montana never left San Francisco? If he healed, returned, and reclaimed his throne? Let's step into that alternate universe. The year is 1992. Joe Montana, finally recovering from the injury that sidelined him for nearly 2 seasons, walks back onto the practice field in Santa Clara. The whispers are everywhere. Is he done? Is this Steve Young's team now? But Montana, with that quiet fire that's defined him since Notre Dame, isn't ready to fade. The 49ers locker room feels the tension. Bill Walsh has stepped away, but his fingerprints are all over the organization. George Seifert now runs the show, and his problem is a dream. 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, 1 roster. In our timeline, Seifert chose the younger arm. But here, in this reality, the competition leans the other way. Montana looks sharp. His passes are crisp. His leadership is magnetic. Veterans like Jerry Rice and Roger Craig rally behind him. The 49ers offense regains its rhythm, precision routes, deadly timing, unstoppable execution. Instead of being traded to Kansas City, Montana stays. Steve Young, as talented as he is, understands the writing on the wall. He accepts the backup role one more time, biding his time, perhaps thinking his opportunity will still come. But not yet. The 1992 season begins with the 49ers on a mission. Montana's comeback is a headline every Sunday. The NFL isn't sure what to expect. 2 years removed from the field, 36 years old. But he silences every doubt. Week after week, he dismantles defenses, reading coverages like a chess master. Jerry Rice, John Taylor, and Brent Jones become surgical instruments in Montana's hands. The offense hums like the 1980s never ended. By mid-season, the Niners are 7-1, and Montana looks like the old Joe again. Calm, surgical, lethal. Across the country, the Dallas Cowboys, led by Troy Aikman, are rising fast. The NFC crown is up for grabs, and the conference showdown everyone's waiting for is inevitable. When the 1992 NFC Championship rolls around, it's Montana versus Aikman, old guard versus new blood. In real life, the Cowboys took over that throne, launching a dynasty that dominated the decade. But in this alternate reality, Montana doesn't surrender that easily. The 49ers, behind his leadership, edge out Dallas in a classic 27-24. The 49ers return to the Super Bowl, facing the Buffalo Bills in yet another redemption story. Buffalo, desperate to end its heartbreak, runs into a legend on a mission. Montana, in vintage form, throws for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. The 49ers win their 5th Lombardi trophy. Joe Montana is named Super Bowl MVP once again. 5 titles. The GOAT before the word even existed. That victory changes everything. The 49ers, instead of transitioning to Steve Young, double down on the veteran. Montana's influence extends deeper. His calm confidence molds younger players. His precision keeps the offense timeless. The West Coast system, now decades old, evolves but never fades. Bill Walsh's blueprint lives on through his greatest disciple. Steve Young, still loyal but restless, eventually asks for a trade in 1994. He heads to a team like the Arizona Cardinals or the Denver Broncos, somewhere in need of a quarterback ready to win now. His career still flourishes, but without Montana's shadow defining his legacy. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, the Montana dynasty stretches into 1994 and 1995. At 38, Joe still has the mind and timing that beat raw athleticism every Sunday. The 1994 49ers, who in real life won the Super Bowl with Steve Young, are even more balanced here. Deion Sanders still signs, attracted by the chance to play for a living legend. The defense is sharp, the offense humming, and Montana, fueled by legacy, wins his 6th Super Bowl ring. 6 championships, tying the future record that Tom Brady would one day chase. And here's where things take a fascinating turn. Brady himself, growing up in the Bay Area idolizing Joe Montana, finds himself inspired not just by what Joe did, but by how long he did it. The idea that a quarterback could play into his late 30s, win championships, and stay loyal to one team changes how the league views longevity. Teams start protecting their quarterbacks differently. Coaching systems are built to preserve precision passers, not just mobile ones. The West Coast philosophy evolves across the league. Smart, quick, rhythmic football becomes the NFL standard for another decade. The ripple effect doesn't stop there. The Cowboys dynasty never fully forms. Without those early NFC titles, the Aikman-Emmett-Irvin trio never dominates the 90s. Instead, the 49ers remain the gold standard, the team of not just the 80s but the 90s too. By 1996, Montana finally begins to slow down. His arm isn't quite what it was, but his mind, that surgical precision, remains elite. The 49ers transition him into more of a mentor role, grooming a young quarterback drafted in 1995 to eventually take over. Joe's final season, 1996, becomes a farewell tour, unlike any other. Every stadium, every crowd, every camera captures history in motion. The greatest quarterback of his generation taking one final bow. The 49ers retire his number immediately after his last game. The league honors him as the standard for class, leadership, and clutch performance. He walks away with 6 Super Bowl rings, 6 Super Bowl MVPs, and an untouchable legacy. And what about the Kansas City Chiefs? Without Montana's 1993 arrival, they never get that magical AFC run. They continue searching for stability through the 90s, maybe landing a different veteran, maybe never finding one. Their timeline shifts dramatically. No AFC championship in 1993, no early 90s resurgence. That ripple affects the AFC's balance. Teams like the Bills and Steelers maintain dominance longer. The Broncos might struggle more, perhaps delaying John Elway's eventual Super Bowl victories. The entire 90s AFC landscape tilts differently because one man never left San Francisco. Back in the Bay, Montana's continued presence also alters Jerry Rice's career. With Joe throwing him the ball longer, Rice's numbers, already untouchable, reach mythic proportions. Over 25,000 career receiving yards, more than 250 touchdowns, records that look even more impossible to break. The duo of Montana and Rice becomes the standard for quarterback-receiver chemistry, a bar no other pair quite reaches. Even the NFL's marketing changes. Instead of the 90s being the era of cowboys and young guns, it becomes the era of the eternal champion. Joe Montana remains the face of the NFL into his late 30s, gracing magazine covers, endorsing everything from sneakers to soda. He becomes not just a football hero but a pop culture icon. His poise defines professionalism. His story, one of loyalty, resilience, and excellence, becomes the blueprint every young athlete studies. And for the 49ers franchise, it means never falling into the rebuilding cycle. There's no mid-90s dip, no post-dynasty confusion. The team stays relevant deep into the decade, leading to a smoother handoff to the next generation. Maybe, by the late 90s, they draft a young quarterback who learns directly from the master himself, creating a lineage that stretches straight from Montana ES legacy to the modern NFL. And that, in turn, changes how we talk about greatness today. The GOAT conversation doesn't start with Brady, it stays with Montana. The rings, the stats, the unbroken loyalty to one team, all make him the gold standard that no one quite reaches. When we look back at football's Mount Rushmore, it isn't a debate between Brady, Manning, and Montana. It's a question of who even comes close to Joe. And maybe that's the beauty of this what if. Because while Montana's real career was already storybook perfect, this alternate world reminds us just how fragile dynasties are. How one trade, one decision, one injury can change the course of sports history. Joe Montana's move to Kansas City was respectful, even graceful, but if he'd stayed, the 49ers might have owned not just a decade, but an entire era. In the end, the image lingers. Candlestick Park, the sea of red and gold, and Joe Montana. Calm, collected, number 16 on his back, scanning the field one last time. The crowd roaring his name, history bending around his arm. Because if he never left San Francisco, the dynasty never ends.